The story of seed oils is not an ancient one. Rather, it's a narrative deeply intertwined with the Industrial Revolution and the relentless pursuit of cheaper, more abundant food sources. Before the late 19th and early 20th centuries, human diets were largely devoid of these highly processed fats. Traditional fats like butter, lard, tallow, and olive oil reigned supreme, fats that our ancestors had consumed for millennia without the widespread chronic diseases we observe today. The introduction of seed oils marked a profound shift, an unintended experiment on a global population, the consequences of which we are only now beginning to fully comprehend. This transformation was not driven by a quest for health, but by economic imperatives and technological advancements that made these novel fats readily available and remarkably inexpensive, flooding the food supply. The pivotal moment arrived with the invention of the mechanical screw press in 1888. This technological marvel unlocked the ability to extract oil from various seeds on an unprecedented industrial scale, a feat previously unimaginable or economically unviable. Suddenly, seeds like cottonseed, previously considered a waste product of the cotton industry, could be transformed into a seemingly endless stream of pale, odorless, and tasteless oil. This newfound capability to mass-produce oils from humble seeds like soy, corn, and sunflower set the stage for their infiltration into virtually every processed food item. The allure of cheap, domestically produced fats was too strong for manufacturers and governments to ignore, especially during times of war and economic hardship when traditional animal fats became scarce or prohibitively expensive. Initially, many of these novel seed oils were not even considered food products for human consumption. Cottonseed oil, for example, found its early applications in soap making and as an industrial lubricant, a far cry from the dinner table. However, through clever marketing, further refinement processes like hydrogenation, which created trans fats, another story of dietary misadventure, and the endorsement of nascent health authorities, these industrial fats were gradually rebranded as wholesome alternatives to artery-clogging saturated fats. The narrative skillfully shifted, painting animal fats as villains, and these new factory-produced oils as the heroes of heart health, a claim that would go largely unchallenged for decades, despite a conspicuous lack of long-term human safety data. The sheer scale of this dietary transformation is staggering. Consider soybean oil, now the most widely consumed edible oil in the United States. Its consumption increased an astonishing 1,000 times between 1909 and 1999. This wasn't a subtle dietary tweak, it was a fundamental re-engineering of the fats we eat. This dramatic rise mirrors the trajectory of many other seed oils, creating a food environment where avoiding them requires extraordinary vigilance. They became ubiquitous, hidden in plain sight in salad dressings, baked goods, snack foods, and restaurant meals, silently altering the fatty acid composition of our bodies and laying the groundwork for a host of modern health problems that continue to baffle the medical establishment. The massive influx of seed oils into the Western diet brought with it an unprecedented surge in our consumption of omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, particularly linoleic acid. While omega-6 fats are essential, meaning our bodies cannot produce them, and we must obtain them from food, the sheer quantity now present in our food supply represents a radical departure from historical human dietary patterns. This isn't just a minor adjustment, it's a fundamental alteration of our biological makeup at a cellular level. Research indicates that over the past 50 years, the amount of omega-6 fatty acids found in the adipose tissue of Americans has increased by a staggering 136%, a direct consequence of our escalating intake of seed oils. This profound change in the fatty acid composition of our tissues is not a trivial matter. Fats are not merely sources of calories. They are integral components of cell membranes, influencing their fluidity, permeability, and the function of embedded proteins and receptors. They are also precursors to powerful signaling molecules called eicosanoids, which regulate inflammation, blood clotting, and immune responses. When the building blocks of our cells are dramatically altered by an overabundance of one type of fatty acid, it stands to reason that cellular function and overall physiological processes will be impacted, potentially in ways that are detrimental to long-term health and resilience against disease. The primary sources of this omega-6 inundation are the very seed oils that have become staples of modern food processing: soybean, corn, sunflower, safflower, cottonseed, and grapeseed oils, among others. These oils are cheap and versatile, making them attractive to food manufacturers seeking to extend shelf life and improve the texture of their products. As a result, they are found in an astonishing array of items, from fast food French fries cooked in vats of corn or soybean oil to seemingly innocuous grocery store items like bread, crackers, and even some infant formulas. This ubiquity makes it incredibly difficult for the average consumer to control their omega-6 intake without a conscious and concerted effort to read labels and choose whole, unprocessed foods. The implications of this altered biological makeup are far-reaching and are increasingly being linked to the chronic diseases that plague modern society. While the human body requires a certain amount of omega-6 fatty acids for normal functioning, the excessive levels now commonly consumed are suspected of promoting a pro-inflammatory state, disrupting metabolic processes, and contributing to the pathogenesis of conditions ranging from cardiovascular disease to certain types of cancer and autoimmune disorders. It's a silent internal shift, but one with potentially loud and devastating consequences for public health, a change that occurred too rapidly for human biology to adequately adapt. For the vast majority of human history, our ancestors consumed omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids in a relatively balanced ratio, often estimated to be somewhere around 1:1 to 4:1. This equilibrium was naturally maintained by diets rich in wild game, fish, foraged plants, and perhaps small amounts of nuts and seeds, but certainly not the concentrated oils extracted from them. Omega-3 fatty acids, such as EPA and DHA found predominantly in fatty fish, and ALA found in some plant sources like flax and chia seeds, are known for their anti-inflammatory properties. They act as a natural counterbalance to the potentially pro-inflammatory effects of omega-6 fatty acids when the latter are consumed in excess. This delicate interplay was crucial for maintaining homeostasis within the body. However, the industrialization of the food supply and the proliferation of seed oils have shattered this ancestral balance. Due to the dramatic increase in seed oil consumption, rich in omega-6s, and a concurrent decrease in omega-3 intake from sources like fatty fish, the typical Western diet now exhibits an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio estimated to be as high as 15:1, or even 20:1 in some populations. This profound imbalance means that the biochemical pathways are overwhelmingly skewed towards the production of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids derived from omega-6 fatty acids, while the production of anti-inflammatory eicosanoids from omega-3s is significantly diminished. It's like having too many accelerators and not enough brakes in a complex biological system. This lopsided ratio is not merely a biochemical curiosity, it has profound implications for human health. Omega-6 fatty acids, particularly linoleic acid, are metabolized into arachidonic acid, which is a precursor to potent inflammatory mediators like prostaglandins and leukotrienes. While some inflammation is necessary for healing and immune response, chronic low-grade inflammation driven by an excessive omega-6 intake is a hallmark of many modern diseases. The constant signaling for inflammation, without sufficient counter-signaling from omega-3 derivatives, creates an internal environment conducive to cellular damage and dysfunction, setting the stage for a wide array of health problems that were far less common in pre-industrial societies. The consequences of this skewed ratio are now being actively investigated, with research linking it to an increased risk of various health issues. These include not only overt inflammatory conditions, but also mood disorders, where inflammation is increasingly recognized as a contributing factor. Furthermore, conditions like persistent knee pain, debilitating back pain, severe menstrual pain, an increased risk of preterm birth, and even the development of certain cancers such as colon cancer have been associated with this dietary imbalance. Restoring a more historically normal ratio is therefore considered by many researchers and health practitioners as a critical step towards mitigating these widespread health concerns and improving overall well-being in the modern era. The term Hateful Eight has gained traction among critics of industrial seed oils, referring to a group of commonly consumed oils notorious for their high omega-6 content and extensive processing. These typically include canola, corn, soybean, cottonseed, grapeseed, sunflower, safflower, and rice bran oil. While each oil has its unique fatty acid profile, they generally share the characteristic of being overwhelmingly rich in omega-6 linoleic acid and relatively poor in beneficial omega-3s. This inherent imbalance is a primary reason for concern, as their widespread use in processed foods and for cooking significantly contributes to the distorted omega-6 to omega-3 ratio seen in modern Western diets, pushing it far from the historical norm. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratios in these oils can vary dramatically, painting a clearer picture of their potential impact. For instance, safflower oil can have an astonishingly high ratio, sometimes cited as 125 to 1, meaning it contains 125 times more omega-6 than omega-3. Sunflower oil often follows suit with ratios around 91 to 1. Corn oil, a ubiquitous frying oil, typically presents a ratio of approximately 50 to 1. Soybean oil, while still heavily skewed, has a somewhat less extreme ratio of around 8 to 1. In stark contrast, canola oil, often marketed as a healthier option due to its monounsaturated fat content, generally has a more favorable ratio of about 2 to 1, though concerns remain about its processing and other compounds. It's crucial to understand that these oils are not consumed in isolation, but are foundational ingredients in countless ultra-processed foods. From salad dressings and mayonnaise to cookies, crackers, chips, and frozen meals, these oils are chosen by manufacturers for their low cost, neutral flavor, and ability to extend shelf life. This means that even individuals who consciously avoid frying with these oils at home may still be inadvertently consuming large quantities through their reliance on convenience foods. The cumulative effect of these hidden fats can be substantial, steadily contributing to the body's omega-6 load and exacerbating the imbalance with anti-inflammatory omega-3s, which are far less prevalent in the processed food supply. The health implications of consistently consuming oils with such high omega-6 to omega-3 ratios are a subject of intense debate and ongoing research. However, the theoretical framework suggests that a diet dominated by these fats could promote a chronic, low-grade inflammatory state, potentially increasing susceptibility to a range of conditions. While some studies offer mixed results, the sheer volume of these oils in the modern diet, coupled with their inherent fatty acid profiles, warrants careful consideration. The focus is not just on individual oils, but on the overall dietary pattern they help create, one that is far removed from the nutrient-dense, balanced diets of our ancestors. Section 5. The inflammatory cascade, linking seed oils to chronic ailments. One of the most significant concerns surrounding high seed oil consumption is its potential to promote chronic inflammation throughout the body. Linoleic acid, the primary omega-6 fatty acid in most seed oils, is a precursor to arachidonic acid. While arachidonic acid is essential for certain bodily functions, an overabundance can lead to an increased production of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids, such as prostaglandins and leukotrienes. When the dietary intake of omega-6s vastly outweighs that of anti-inflammatory omega-3s, this system can become dysregulated, leading to a persistent, low-level inflammatory state. This is not the acute inflammation that helps heal an injury, but a simmering systemic inflammation that can silently damage tissues and organs over time. This chronic inflammatory state is increasingly recognized as a common underlying factor in a wide spectrum of modern chronic diseases. Conditions such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, certain types of arthritis, and even some neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's disease have strong inflammatory components. While seed oils are unlikely to be the sole cause of these complex conditions, their potential contribution to an overall pro-inflammatory internal environment is a serious consideration for public health. The shift away from traditional fats towards these industrially produced oils has coincided with a dramatic rise in these very diseases, a correlation that warrants deeper investigation beyond simple dismissal. Furthermore, the health risks associated with high omega-6 to omega-3 ratios extend beyond just generalized inflammation. Specific research has pointed to connections with mood disorders, including anxiety and depression, where neuroinflammation is thought to play a significant role. Chronic pain conditions, such as persistent knee pain and back pain, which affect millions and significantly reduce the quality of life, have also been linked to diets high in omega-6 fatty acids and low in omega-3s. Even issues related to reproductive health, such as debilitating menstrual pain and an increased risk of preterm birth, have been associated with this dietary imbalance, suggesting that the effects are widespread and impact multiple physiological systems. The concern is not that omega-6 fatty acids are inherently bad, they are, after all, essential. The problem lies in the unprecedented quantities and the profoundly skewed ratio to omega-3s that characterize modern diets. This imbalance disrupts the delicate signaling pathways that regulate inflammation, pushing the body towards a state where inflammatory processes are more easily triggered and less effectively resolved. Addressing this imbalance by reducing the intake of high omega-6 seed oils and increasing omega-3 sources could therefore be a powerful yet often overlooked strategy for mitigating the risk and burden of many chronic inflammatory conditions that define our current health landscape. Section 6. The heart of the matter: seed oils and cardiovascular controversies. The relationship between seed oil consumption and cardiovascular health is perhaps one of the most contentious and widely debated areas in nutrition science. For decades, dietary guidelines have advocated replacing saturated fats found in animal products like butter and red meat with polyunsaturated fats, primarily from seed oils, based on the premise that this substitution would lower LDL cholesterol, often termed bad cholesterol, and thereby reduce the risk of heart disease. Indeed, numerous studies have confirmed that swapping saturated fats for PUFAs from seed oils can lead to a reduction in total and LDL cholesterol levels, a biochemical change that was long equated with improved heart health outcomes. However, the narrative becomes more complex when we look beyond cholesterol markers to hard endpoints like heart attacks, strokes, and overall mortality. A comprehensive review of 7 randomized controlled trials examining the effects of seed oils on heart attack risk revealed varying and sometimes contradictory outcomes. Interestingly, some data suggest that seed oils with lower omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, such as soybean oil with a ratio around 8:1, might be associated with a reduced risk of heart attacks and death. Given that soybean oil is the most purchased seed oil in the US, this finding adds a layer of nuance to the discussion, suggesting that not all seed oils behave identically in the body. Conversely, the same review indicated that seed oils with higher omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, such as corn oil around 50:1, were actually found to potentially increase the risk of heart attacks and death. This divergence highlights the critical importance of considering the specific fatty acid profile of the oils in question, rather than treating all vegetable oils as a monolithic entity. Furthermore, it raises concerns about the widespread use of high-ratio oils, particularly in processed foods and restaurant settings, where they contribute significantly to the overall omega-6 load and potentially negate any benefits seen with lower-ratio oils, or even tip the balance towards harm. Adding to the complexity, some research indicates that while replacing saturated fats with seed oils does lower cholesterol, this reduction doesn't always translate into a decreased risk of death from heart disease. This discrepancy suggests that focusing solely on LDL cholesterol as a marker of cardiovascular health may be overly simplistic, and that other factors, possibly related to inflammation, oxidative stress from unstable PUFAs, or the specific types of lipoproteins, could be at play. The long-held belief that simply lowering cholesterol with seed oils equates to better heart health is now being questioned, as the full impact of these industrial fats on the cardiovascular system remains an area of active and often perplexing research. Section 7. Beyond general discomfort: migraines, genetics, and seed oil metabolism. The influence of dietary fatty acids, particularly the balance of omega-6s and omega-3s, extends beyond cardiovascular health and general inflammation, touching upon highly specific and debilitating conditions like migraines. A notable randomized controlled trial provided compelling evidence in this area. The study demonstrated that participants who followed diets specifically designed to be high in omega-3 fatty acids and low in omega-6 fatty acids, effectively a diet low in many common seed oils, experienced a significant reduction in the frequency and severity of their migraines. This finding offers a ray of hope for migraine sufferers seeking non-pharmacological approaches to manage their condition, pointing towards dietary modification as a powerful tool. The results of this migraine study were quite striking. Participants who successfully reduced their omega-6 intake, for example, by consciously switching from high omega-6 cooking oils like corn oil to alternatives like olive oil, which is primarily monounsaturated fat, and simultaneously increased their omega-3 intake, reported a reduction of approximately 4 migraine days per month. This level of improvement is comparable to or even exceeds the efficacy of some preventative migraine medications, but without the associated side effects. Such research underscores the potent biological effects of dietary fats and suggests that rebalancing our fatty acid intake could have profound benefits for neurological health and pain management. Adding another layer of complexity to the seed oil story is the emerging understanding of genetic influences on how individuals metabolize these fats and their subsequent inflammatory potential. Studies on the inflammatory effects of seed oils have yielded mixed results, and genetic variability may be one reason for these discrepancies. For instance, some research suggests that individuals of African, Indigenous, and Latino descent may possess genetic variants that lead them to metabolize omega-6 fatty acids more rapidly. This faster metabolism could potentially result in an increased production of arachidonic acid and its pro-inflammatory derivatives, thereby making these populations more susceptible to inflammation when consuming diets high in seed oils. This genetic nuance means that blanket dietary recommendations regarding seed oils might not be appropriate for everyone. What might be relatively benign for one individual could be more problematic for another, based on their ancestral background and genetic makeup. While a meta-analysis found no significant effects of high omega-6 intake on 11 inflammatory markers overall, it did note that one specific marker was elevated, hinting at subtle but potentially important effects. Christopher Gardner, PhD from Stanford University, has stated that current scientific understanding does not broadly support the claim that omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. Yet these genetic considerations suggest the picture may be more intricate than a simple yes or no answer, requiring more personalized approaches in the future. Section 8. Echoes in the Zeitgeist, Public Pronouncements and Scientific Scrutiny. The debate surrounding seed oils has moved beyond the confines of research laboratories and academic journals, spilling into the public square with considerable vigor. Prominent public figures and a growing number of online influencers have taken strong stances, often labeling seed oils like canola and soybean oil as toxic and major contributors to the rising tide of chronic diseases in Western societies. For instance, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who gained attention in political spheres, has been vocal in his assertions that Americans are being unknowingly poisoned by these common cooking oils. His campaign even adopted slogans like "Make frying oil tallow again," advocating a return to traditional animal fats. These strong claims have resonated with a segment of the population concerned about food quality and the influence of industrial food production on health. Online communities dedicated to avoiding seed oils have flourished, sharing anecdotal evidence of improved health upon eliminating these fats from their diets. Fast casual restaurant chains like Sweetgreen have also responded to this growing consumer concern, announcing initiatives to remove seed oils from some of their menu items, particularly salad dressings, opting instead for oils like olive oil or avocado oil. This corporate response indicates a shifting awareness and a market demand for alternatives, driven at least in part by the public discourse amplified by influencers and health advocates. However, this anti-seed oil movement has met with significant pushback from many mainstream nutrition scientists and established health organizations. These experts often view the blanket condemnation of seed oils as undermining decades of research that has generally supported the benefits of replacing saturated fats with unsaturated fats, including those from seed oils, primarily for lowering LDL cholesterol. Christopher Gardner of Stanford University, for example, emphasizes that a large body of evidence associates consuming seed oils with better health outcomes when compared to butter and lard, particularly concerning cholesterol levels. The scientific community largely maintains that unsaturated fats, a category that includes most seed oils, are an important part of a heart-healthy diet. The core of the scientific counterargument often rests on the idea that while correlations exist between increased seed oil consumption and rises in obesity and chronic disease, causation is far from proven. Diets high in ultra-processed foods, which are indeed major vehicles for seed oils, also tend to be high in refined sugars, excessive sodium, artificial additives, and sometimes unhealthy saturated or trans fats, alongside being low in fiber and micronutrients. Therefore, attributing health problems solely to seed oils in such diets may be an oversimplification, ignoring the broader dietary context. Scientists like Gardner suggest focusing on well-established dietary improvements, such as increasing fruit and vegetable intake, and choosing vegetable oils over animal fats for cholesterol management, rather than demonizing an entire category of fats. Section 9. Reclaiming our plates. Charting a course towards dietary wisdom. Navigating the complex and often contradictory information surrounding seed oils requires a discerning approach, moving beyond simplistic labels of good or bad. The dramatic increase in their consumption over the past century, coupled with the significant alteration in our dietary omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio, undeniably warrants careful consideration. While the scientific community remains divided on the precise extent of their harm or benefit, the sheer scale of this dietary shift suggests that a return to more traditional, whole food-based eating patterns may hold keys to better health outcomes, reducing our reliance on highly processed ingredients, including many industrially produced seed oils. One practical step individuals can take is to become more aware of the types of fats they are consuming. This involves reading food labels diligently to identify hidden seed oils in processed foods. Common culprits include soybean, corn, cottonseed, sunflower, and safflower oils. Prioritizing whole, unprocessed foods naturally limits exposure to these industrial fats. Cooking at home using fats with more favorable profiles, such as olive oil, avocado oil, butter, ghee, or even coconut oil in moderation, allows for greater control over dietary fat intake. Reducing consumption of fast food and commercially prepared baked goods, which are often laden with high omega-6 seed oils, can also make a significant difference in rebalancing fatty acid intake. Simultaneously, increasing the consumption of omega-3 fatty acids is crucial for restoring a healthier fatty acid ratio. This can be achieved by incorporating fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring into the diet several times a week. For those who do not consume fish, plant-based sources of ALA such as flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts can contribute, though the conversion of ALA to the more potent EPA and DHA is limited in humans. High-quality fish oil or algal oil supplements can also be considered, particularly for individuals with very low omega-3 intake or those seeking to actively address an existing imbalance or inflammatory condition, though whole food sources are generally preferred. Ultimately, the focus should be on an overall dietary pattern that emphasizes nutrient density and minimally processed foods, rather than fixating on single nutrients or food components in isolation. Eating more fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains, while being mindful of the types and sources of fats, aligns with broad consensus for promoting long-term health. While the debate over seed oils will likely continue, individuals can empower themselves by making informed choices that reduce reliance on ultra-processed products and embrace a way of eating that nourishes the body with a balanced array of fats, more akin to the diets upon which human biology evolved, rather than the novel creations of the industrial food era.